And we are live. What's going on, everybody on YouTube Live? It's your boy, Billy Rowe. Today is Tuesday. Actually, it's 6 p.m., but it's time for a first row Intersation. Tonight, we got something special going on. We got two back-to-back Intersations. Tonight's first Intersation will be on my brother's keeper with the fan favorite, Moses Jenkins. My brother, my cousin. I call him Cousin Mo. He calls me Cousin Ro. Tonight is going to be really special, action-packed, jumping in with lots of energy. Please feel free to engage in the chat. Please feel free to ask questions. Please feel free to also contribute to the conversation. So as always, I like to share, before I get started, what an intersation is. Intersation for me is when an interview meets conversation. You put the two together, you get intersation. So in my life, I'm very privileged and having the ability to have some very good relationships with friends, coworkers, families, all kinds of people's acquaintances, that we have these conversations that will be at the surface level, and then they end up going a lot deeper. And that deepness of that conversation always tends to yield growth, always tends to yield development, always tends to yield positivity inside as well. And so what Intersations is a way for me to open up a literal lens into those conversations. So though you'll see tonight Moses and I conversing back and forth on the video, I want you to know that this is very much an open conversation for you to engage in as well. So don't let the fact that we're the only two that you see be the reason why you don't participate and contribute. I'm looking forward to your contribution tonight, and hopefully you will grow as much as we grow from this conversation. So with that, we got to jump right in. It's going to be rapid fire tonight. Moses, your mic's on mute. I need you to unmute because I'm getting ready to introduce you. Well, I'm not going to introduce him. I'm going to let her introduce herself. But Cousin Mo, can you say hello to the people and introduce yourself, please?
Hello, and peace to the chat. Everyone that's watching live, everyone that'll catch the restream. Moses Jenkins, you know I'm your Morehouse man. I'm a father, I'm a husband. I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. Cousin Ro, you're looking good, man. You look good.
I feel great.
You feel great, man. That's what's up, man. How's it going out there? You in SAC, right?
Yeah, I'm in California today. So, you know, the Intersations, as they say, the show must go on. I'm on the road, but the show must go on. So,
yes. Internet goes with you. So you got that, right?
Exactly. Internet. I got a bigger monitor. That's actually nice, in a bigger area, you know, so people don't talk about my apartment no more, but we'll see how that goes. Let's get it, squad.
Let's get it, squad. Gang. So yeah, that's me, man. That's me,
Moses the Morehouse man. I'm gonna start calling you that, Moses the Morehouse man. Cousin Mo the Morehouse man.
Hey, you know that was some sacrifice to make that happen too. Right? Oh yeah. That's another story. Oh no, hey, that's gonna segue into tonight too. So more.
All right. Well, then we ain't gonna touch it too much. So again, I want you guys to be able to contribute to this conversation, partake, participate. This show is for you guys as much as it is for us. So please take time to engage tonight. Don't wait until the last minute to ask your questions, because if you do, you might regret it, because this show has to come to a hard end at 55 minutes ish. Anyway, we're gonna jump straight into it. As always, with every Intersation, I like to start with the same exact questions. Starts easy, gets more difficult as we go. The first question to you, Cousin Mo, is what does this topic of brother's keeper mean to you?
Now, this is a critical conversation right here. Brother's keeper to me, in the shortest definition that I can probably use. You know, I could be long-winded, right? I won't be that way, but in the shortest definition, brother's keeper means one who has assumed the responsibility of looking out for their fellow man. I'll just say it like that.
I like that. I like that a lot. You can elaborate if you want to, cousin. We ain't gonna keep you that short.
Absolutely, then. So the fellow man, typically, am I my brother's keeper? It's related to my direct family, but I wasn't raised that way. My mama, my grandmother, you know, my aunties, we had cousins who were brothers. We had people who were neighbors who were brothers. Cousin Louie, you remember Cousin Louie?
I remember Cousin Louie.
This very day, that's my cousin Louie. Your cousin Ro. We got cousin Gatewood. Matt Haynes is my cousin. Justin Williams is one family. So am I my brother's keeper? Cannot be. Am I just my blood brother's keeper? Am I looking out for them? But how have we learned to embrace every human, even some of those who we don't agree with all the time, but mostly those who we really want to have their back. If they need something, we're there for them. If we need something, they're there for us, not just financially, but emotionally, our support systems. That's what it means to be a brother's keeper.
I like that. You actually bring in an aspect of being a brother's keeper that I agree with. It's like, where we grew up at, there was the people who were your brothers and sisters. Obviously, they were your brothers and sisters. And then your biological cousins kind of became like your subdivision of your brothers and sisters. And then your friends became your cousins, and your mom's friends became your aunts and your uncles and all that stuff. It's like,
that's right.
That keeping that keep is so critical to what it is to be a brother's keeper, holding people accountable and allowing those people to hold you accountable. Why? Because there's a vested interest in the well-being of that individual, whether it's them for you or you for them. So I'm with you on brother's keeper. I can't wait to have this conversation. So let's just jump into it. We talked about the definition really quick. Can you tell me we talked about the definition. Can you tell me how important has your network been for you as a brother's keeper and a brother's keepee?
It's been critical, man. Over my time, I've had like I said one time, what did I say? I've had a lot of failures in my life, a lot of points that I needed a brother's keeper. I needed somebody to look out for me and help me bounce back. The amount of failures that I've experienced, man, it could be borderline depressing. I mean, and then in times I have gone through my episodes of, real clinical depression to where down was real down, but I still had little Albert that was there. I had people, I had people who really could see my potential. They could really see my situation. I could open up. I could be vulnerable and tell them how I was really feeling and what I was going through. And so they've been with me along the journey, whether it was the military, it was, first of all, even before the military, it was 9/11 and just being able to process what just happened to my country, what just happened there in New York that affected me. And then military and what are the steps that I need to do to be successful there. DJ was in, Tim, my neighbor, Tim Russian was in. He was a 19-kilo tank operator like myself. And so being able to pick his brain, there was a lot that went into the relationships that were cultivated at Calvary Christian Center. I thought I wanted to do music. So being able to branch out and talk to them and just, well, you can still do music there. I know that's in your soul. It'll always be there. And being able to transform that into call and cadence, even in the middle. So I could find my joy anywhere because of the relationships that I had fostered earlier on, and then keeping them in contact, and making life what it is despite those failures. I can't say that I would be here right now had it not been for those brothers and that fraternal brotherhood, even in the military and then thereafter. So, yeah, man, it's been vital. It's been vital. Everything from psychological to big life decisions to just what do you really want to do? And then being able to have brothers who can help me understand that about myself. So,
yeah. I like that. So you kind of bring into the two aspects that I see when I think of the brother's keeper. There's the brother's keeper who is the role model, kind of giving you a picture or a diagram of what it is that you're yourself trying to become. Then there's that brother's keeper who is the support base, who kind of acts as those structural supports to you when you're deflated, whether it may be from depression or you're unsure on your next move. They act as that support and that encouragement to keep you moving in the direction that you need to move. You left out one that I didn't hear, and you might touch on it in this next question. But the one that I have experienced with has been the brother's keeper, who is the one who corrects and allows you to helps bring to light or shine light on the wrong direction that you're headed. So they almost act as a compass, saying, hey, I don't know if you're looking at this compass or not, but let me put it in front of your face so you can see that the direction you're headed is not north, it's actually south. So I think there's a lot in there in that. So I'm going to move to the next question is, for you, what was your first experience that you can remember with the Brothers Keepers methodology? And were you the keeper or the keepee?
I was definitely the keepee, and that has to be like my big bro school. Robert Lyles, big football player, Grant High School, super popular, lots of women, started making money early on. So he had all of the elements of a good role model, except that we were still in the hood. We were still broke. We were struggling with family members who had addiction that we didn't know how to help. And there was a lot of pressure that came from, do I want to go to college or do I want to stay around family? Even, with the gang life, and how it started to become attractive, because that was another brotherhood, right, or a form of brother's keeper, where I found myself engaged in behaviors that were not guiding me in the direction where my potential actually could lead. And so having him say, I know you got what you call friends now, but you got to understand where these friends are coming from. Many of them don't have a father like you have a father. Many of them, when it comes to Thanksgiving, guess where they'll be? Right over here with your Aunt Nee and your Uncle Junior. So don't take it for granted the time that you have with them, but don't get so attached as to where you start to envy the position that they're in right now. Because of your potential, you can go to college. Look at your grades. When you go to class, you're figuring it out. You can do the math, you can do the science. So he was the one who actually gave me the correction of, Moses, you're fucking up, when I started to admire the gang culture a little bit more than I should. So I was definitely the keepy, definitely somebody on the heavy-handed end of it. Because, you know, you try to jump bad. You know, I'm already 5'2", so my Napoleon complex is kicking up. I'm ready to get out in the street. And he was the one who, he was like, oh, you think you're ready to fight? He went to the Dick's Sporting Goods store and got the boxing gloves, and then started pulling kids from the neighborhood, and we were out in the street boxing. Like, let's do it the right way and get this out of your system, because you have too much potential to squander trying to be Billy Bad at. My bad, Billy.
Oh, you're good. You're good. No, I agree with you there, because, you know, the only person from Grant that I know does boxing is Mike Guy, and he has his own training studio or training gym out here. I believe, I'm not sure what state he's in right now, but he has his own training gym and he's doing his thing with boxing. And you put on some gloves, you know, as a kid who's walking around, your chest is out, and, you know, can't nobody tell you nothing. You take a couple of punches to the head and you find out, I really don't want to have to fight every day, like only if it's necessary.
Well, chapter 3, you said turn to chapter 3. I can turn to chapter 3.
Yeah, chapter 3, no problem. Let me get there real quick. So I think that's good. And you know, it's funny because with the Brothers Keeper, I believe there is there's different roles that need to take place. And like you said, that was your heavy-handed brother. Like, oh, okay, you about that life. Well, let's go and see. I'm gonna line some people up to fight you, and we'll see how many fights you enjoy being in to see if that's the lifestyle you want to live. And sometimes you need that, what we call tough love, to really dissuade you from the hard-headedness that's ingrained in your body on the direction. No, I said I want to go that way, so I'm gonna go that way, and I'm gonna show everybody that I was built for this, when really that's not in your best interest. So having that brother who's willing to look at you and say, nah, bro, that's not the way you want to go, is a critical part to our success overall as men and women. But for us, you know, we two brothers, men, that's a critical part to our success. So you kind of talked a little bit about what your brotherhood consisted of, being those aunts, those uncles, men and women, male and females, relationships in your life. Can you tell me a little bit about how you account to them as when they are correcting you, and then also how they account to you? Because I believe accountability is a two-way street. Your mic is muted, cousin.
That's hard. Sometimes I'm not as receptive as I need to be. So even when they're giving me advice, and they don't have to give me advice, they don't have to take time out of their schedule and sit me down, and they don't have to pick their brain for experiences that they've been through. They don't have to tell me any. Oh, let me say this too. Shout out. I do have sister keepers as well. I don't just have brothers keeper. I do have sisters keepers as well. But this is brothers keeper, and that's what he asked. So that's what we're going to interview on today, or Intersation on. But yeah, I'm not always as open. And how am I accounted? I have to be willing to listen. I have to be willing to create some sort of game plan. What are you going to do once I've imparted this knowledge on you, or I've given you this advice? What changes are you going to make? And then how are you going to follow up after you've made these changes to let me know that this is the thing that you learned, this is what you did, and this is what you're going to continue to do. So I try to do that now. I didn't do it as well when I was younger, was that follow-up piece. And now that I'm in corporate America, I take it a little bit more serious, because these are, you know, middle management, and we know how hard it is to crack that glass ceiling coming from where we're from. And when you actually find people who've been successful at that, and they just want to, you know, they can't get the roadblocks out of the way, but they can take some time and let you know that, look, these are some roadblocks that I've noticed when it comes to young brothers with potential in corporate America. And when they have potential, here are some of the obstacles and obstructions that they may have faced. And Moses, I don't want you to face those same things. So here's what I want to talk to you about. And so once they've given me that, let's say, for example, I don't know what else to call it. So the hashtag Me Too and the interactions that we might have with women, some that can be taken out of context. If I'm still approaching these situations in corporate America in the same way that I would have approached them when I was in college. In college, we were open to have these conversations and debates and deliberations. In corporate America, you need to be a little bit more structured. So they say, Moses, you went to an HBCU, a historically Black college or university. You were around African Americans. The subtle nuances and the cultural aspects of how you communicate, that was fine and that was well there. But when you come here, look around yourself. We are still a minority, and there are many of our company who are not accustomed to your cultural nuances, the jokes that you tell, the movies that you have watched, those experiences, who you laughed with, and you think that it's funny, but to them, because they're not in on the joke, those are the type of communications that can be taken out of context. And in order to eliminate some of those, here would be their recommendation point. You're either going to have to start watching some more culturally universal movies and comedies so that you can relate to them on their level, or you're going to have to be a little bit more cognizant about what you're saying around mixed company. That's two. Or number three, when you're having your conversations in movies, preface it a little bit. Sometimes they can relate to, oh, you remember Kevin Hart, the little comedian, and they might know a joke that Kevin Hart has that can relate to, let them open up with the Kevin Hart joke, let them open up with the Eddie Murphy. They might know some Coming to America, but give them the chance to say what was funny about it, and then let them start to laugh off before you just roll into one of the you shot me in my pinky toe jokes. Right. and so taking that, then it's all good that we can live and we can be ourselves in corporate America, but there are some subtle nuances that we're going to have to grasp. And so take that information in, digest it, palate it, and be like, come back in 2-3 weeks. I just had an experience that probably saved my life. We were in the break room and they started talking politics. And then while they're talking politics, you know me, the comedians that have always talked politics, they're coming to mind. D.L. Hughley's and the Kings of Comedy and all of them. And I want to say something, but I sat back and I remembered what you said, that sometimes comedy does work, but let them be the ones to introduce it. And you know what? It works. We got to talking about different comedians, not just ones that I like, but ones that they like. And then the uncomfortability about talking politics kind of dissipated, and we were able to start building relationships across cultures. So that's that information. Give them that feedback. They're like, thank you. That way they're more receptive to giving me information, and it shows that I'm receptive to listening and learning from them as well. Long story, but I had to give you that one. That's a good one.
Hey, no, that is a good one, because myself, I've had plenty of experiences in corporate America where we get to talking about childhood, and you quickly find out that your childhood is not like your peers' childhood in the corporate world. And so, even just music, they're like, oh yeah, in the 80s, I was listening to this, and they can name off like 10 artists that I've never heard in my life. And I would like, they were like, well, what did you listen to? And I'm like, well, I listened to other kinds of music in the 80s. And they're just like, oh, wow, okay. And so when you start listing off yours, they're like, it creates that level of intrigue. But if you got to kind of let them have that start, so that way they're like, okay, well, I said some things he doesn't know. Let me see what he says that I know. And then you find out you don't both know. And so maybe you make a quick little mixtape of some music or whatever. Obviously, in the corporate world, you got to kind of shift away from what's going on, Brother Antoine. You got to shift away from, obviously explicit or music that might be considered derogatory or whatever it may be. But there's some common ground. Maybe you'll meet up on MC Hammer or Vanilla Ice. I don't know. But either way, you're right. It's about having the comedic timing when things that are funny to you are appropriate for the situation. And a brother who has been in a corporate environment longer than you and understands the nuances of that environment can absolutely be a guide through that minefield to keep you from stepping on what I call word mines, where you think something's funny, you say it, and now all of a sudden you're sitting in the HR office based on some experience that you decided to share that wasn't really funny to everybody else when you were laughing, dying in tears. So that is important. I think instead of how do they account to you, or in the brotherhood methodology, how people account to you, I kind of want to shift to that guidance of a stranger. So we live, I feel like, in a world today where we're almost encouraged to not get involved. But then on the other hand, like you said, going back to 9/11, it was like, if you see something, say something. But on the other hand, we're like, well, it ain't none of my business. But on the other hand, you're posting everything on social media. And we live in a crazy world right now, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So it's a matter for me. I know what launched a lot of my YouTube and Wednesday Words was an experience when I was being a brother's keeper to a complete stranger. And so for you, how do you approach people, if you approach people, when you're being that brother's keeper, whether it's another fellow brother, like a black brother in the community, or it's just a brother who's another guy, other nationality in the community, or even maybe a brother's keeper to a sister in the community, no matter what their nationality may be either. How do you approach those situations? Because they're delicate.
They are. I mean, so there's two areas to where I've really started to back off, and one of them is giving advice. I think I overthink it now. Giving advice is hard for me because I don't think I know enough. I don't have enough information. Like, I don't know how they process information. I don't know their personality type, what they've been through, some of those experiences that make life, living and more bearable for them. So for me to give advice just based off of my understanding might be guiding them in a direction. What happens if they take my advice and it turns out to be something devastating to their worldview? And so I kind of backed up off of it when it comes to being that type of brother's keeper. And then the other one is correction. Right now, I was raised in a society where marijuana was normal, but it was still illegal.
Right.
Normal alcoholism was normal, but it was still legal. Being a player was normal, but it was still a piece of crap way to be. I mean, it's all of those different normalized, conflicting thoughts that continue to run through my head, even to this day. I've been married for 12 years. I still have these same conflicting thoughts. But because I have that as a part of me, then correcting somebody else seems a bit out of place because we don't know where that might be in the next 2 months or 2 years for them. And so I struggle with those two areas. That was my premise. And now when I do be a corrector, I do come from an analytical approach. So I'm like, man, let's think about it this way. Or that's interesting. I'll ask like the discovery questions. I'm a salesman. I have discovery questions, probing questions, open-ended questions that just want to get them thinking about other things. I like to do the scenario planning. And so, in philosophical approaches, let's imagine there were 10 things that were the worst things, put them on a scale of 1 to 10, crack, nuclear weapons, prostitution, how bad are they, 1 to 10? And so, once you get a little premise about how they think and their scale of what they think is actually bad versus what they think is good, then that might help you understand, and you, or myself rather, how to target my next suggestions. So I might see, for an example, now I might see a behavior that's in the street, somebody's, going bad on their baby mama. My natural inclination is not to intervene. I don't want to give an advice about, that's a legal case and all of those things that could be bad for you. I don't want to say, I'm saying, let me correct this brother and step in and put hands on him or step in and be that intermediary. But I don't want to just sit back and allow it to happen. And so I would rather distract them by asking them questions to be like, what the fuck? What is he talking about? And just really get their mind off of what they were doing. Like, look, man, how bad could it be? How bad could this be? Is this the worst thing that could have ever happened in your relationship? On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this situation? And some people like to catastrophize and, oh, no, this is an 11, bro. Respect and loyalty. I mean, you can't really do much when they're just that extreme, but many times you'll find that they're able to talk themselves into a state of more calm, and more peace. If they can see on a scale of 1 to 10, there are some things that are worse. And right now, what have we done? We've given them time, at least some, to allow that anger to dissipate. That's just one example. There's tons of them. I deal with veterans a lot. I deal with children a lot. So mine is just kind of hit and miss.
Okay, fair enough. No, I agree. There's that hesitancy to want to engage or get involved. I feel like mine is a little broken because I'm just like, if I see something that's just off, I mean, like from a kid walking down the street doing something they ain't supposed to do, I'll pull over my car. What are you doing? And you don't need to be doing that. But I've also to the extreme have seen somebody from a distance get knocked out, and the guy standing over him who knocked him out still punching him in the head, and went over and said, "Hey, look, like I don't even know what's going on. kind of asking those questions, those feel felt found questions from sales, where I'm like, look, I don't know what's going on. If you tell me that he's done the worst thing on the planet that I can think of, and I'll walk away. But if you tell me like he kissed your girlfriend or slept with your girlfriend, then I feel like he's down, he's unconscious, and you're still punching him. And also to realize that if you are the one who got knocked out and were unconscious getting punched, I would still be over here genuinely concerned about your well-being. Now, do you insert yourself into those situations every opportunity you get? No, use some kind of sense. However, I know for myself personally, I would not have been able to just like chill that night, like, oh, nothing happened, no big deal or whatever. If that person popped up on the news as a man beaten to death in the street, when I know that I was there and could have done something to hopefully change that situation. So you're right. There's some gloves that have to be put on with that, and they're not boxing gloves. They're those white gloves for when you clean something. You got to be able to handle that situation delicately. So I agree with you.
Let me take one step further too. I don't live in the hood anymore. So the violent interactions are going to be fewer and far between. Most cases, it is the noise around violence that I want to become violence or I'm about to become violence. So in that case, then I'm not actually stepping in between two people that are punching. I'm stepping into verbal assaults daily. And in corporate America, we experience those verbal assaults, whether they're subtle or every once in a while, we might get the direct response. Or did it just get dark in here? Or what are you talking about? What is your opinion? And they do those things. They do those things from time to time. And then being able to witness it and still have an opinion, an articulate opinion, or being the victim of it, where somebody is actually coming for me, as I think that's the slang, right? How they coming for me? They coming at me. Yeah, and still be able to resolve those matters as well. So I see it. How do I respond? It's probably like you said, the feel found. I've been there. But then also there's those times where I'm just like, look, man, I don't want to give you any advice, but in some situations, especially when you're talking to folks who are dealing with senior leaders and multi-million-dollar business owners and things, it probably won't always be the best suggestion to be loud, be offensive, just be super opinionated. Sometimes it's better just to ask questions. And that's how I kind of approach it. But yeah.
Okay.
Who is that? Omega Black just came in the building?
That's Anthony Jackson from Christie Court. So for my next question, so there's one aspect, obviously, about the Brothers Keeper methodology that is about somebody giving you advice, you giving somebody advice, but that's only like one half of the picture. Anybody can give advice all day long, but the real question is how do you implement that wisdom, that tidbit, that nugget? How do you implement that? So my question is for you is, how do you implement adjustments when people are giving you that criticism, that feedback, and that information about yourself?
Hard and slowly. It's hard because for me, I'm already educated a bit. So I learned a little bit. I read a couple of books. And I've experienced just a little bit growing up before I got into those books. So I got some life experience too. And so we're running up against a whole brick wall full of, hold on, but that's, my lens and my bullshit meter be going through the roof sometimes when I be hearing some of it just, it's the loudest thing that I can hear in my own head sometimes. And it's hard to turn off that bullshit meter. It's hard to overcome that big wall that I've set up, that thick wall, and it's hard to get by the experiences and how they've impacted me, plus my education, how that's impacted me, being a veteran, how that's impacted me. Now dealing in, multifacets of the sales world, field sales, driving a truck all day, going from business to business, knocking on doors, all of that, phones. And so that's the hard part. And that's what also makes it slow, right? Because it could be some good advice that I'm resistant to 100%, immediately trying to shut it down, that can echo and reverberate in the back of my head for a while, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then something comes back up and it reminds me. And that slow process of allowing it to matriculate, and then now I'm at 90% resistance. And I'm like, well, it may be some truth in it. You know what happens? You'll hear a song and it'll remind you of it. You'll be watching something on TV and be like, that's what they was talking about. It'll be something in the universe that reminds you of that one piece of advice, and that's what brings it back in. So after that long and slow, arduous process, there are sometimes, let me give you an example of a life change for me. Oh shit, this is gonna be hard. I'll get the big one. Let's just do the big one. Alcoholism was my biggest problem. Alcoholism was whooping my tail. And for me, I didn't want to stop. I didn't see no reason to stop. I didn't have no reason. Man, I am Moses. I can handle it. I can drink, and man, I'm good. But for me, it was the most devastating thing in my life. Drinking and driving drunk. I got DUIs. I've been locked up a couple of times for it, and it was not changing until I got advice that was just like, look, man, Moses, what are you doing to your life? Like job, wife, children, everything on the line. What are you doing? And that was from a big brother, a big Q too. So they really go by the code of fraternal brotherhoods. I got my brothers back, and so really just like, what are you doing? Get your life back together. And for me, that was it. That was it. Like I haven't had a drink since. Been on that road to recovery, that pathway since, and damn proud about it. So I'm learning from it every day. It took a while. I was still like, man, you're not out here in the deep South driving around the Confederate South with these flags and these big trucks and this carry everywhere state, and I can't even have a self-protection in the vehicle. My OnStar don't work. If whatever happens to me, I'm just another, you'll replace me and hire somebody else in 2 weeks. Only thing you need to know is where to pick up the car. And that's how desensitive they are to it. And I'm out here every day in it, being called the boy and the Jerry and all of that, going into these conditions and these spaces that are messing with me psychologically because I'm a vet and I want to protect not only myself but other people. And so, man, that exacerbated it. And now I'm getting home and can't wait to have a drink because I got woes and excuses and woe it's me and excuse this world and this sucks. And man, but it still had to, but what are you going to do?
Right.
And what are you going to do?
And you're right. It's a slow process. It's funny because, well, funny is a bad word. It's interesting because, you know, alcoholism, people don't understand that urge to get back to a drink. Like, I need to get back to this, not even flat out drunk. It may be flat out drunk for some people, but it could just be a buzz state for other people. I just need to get to that so that I can manage the day, manage all the things that I'm enamored with, or not enamored with, that I'm impacted by, to try to manage those things. And so we reach out to alcohol, we reach out to other drugs, we reach out to women. I mean, like, that was my thing. I wasn't never really big on drugs, but I would reach out to women in like a heartbeat. Hey, I don't like the way this feels. I'm gonna go and reach out to this woman who's gonna make me feel better, who may make me feel better sexually, who may make me feel better within my ego, who may make me feel like, yeah, I'm that player. So all these other things that I'm dealing with, isolation, loneliness, and things, they don't speak as loud and they're not as boisterous when I'm dealing with this woman who's kind of soothing and easing that. So you're right. It's a hard and a slow process, I think, because what's inside of us, our voice always is the loudest voice. And so it goes back to, I don't know if it was an Intersation or a Wednesday Word at this point, but it goes back to a video I did where I said, you know, your voice is the loudest voice. So regardless if I tell you I love you every day, it has to go through, my I love you has to go through a filter of the story that you've been telling yourself all day long. So and if people have been interjecting into that story, you know, talking down to you or trying to make you feel less than, or making you feel like an outcast, an outsider, all those different things, then it's that much more that it packs on top of you when it comes time to hear positive reinforcement or positive accountability and say, hey, what are you doing over here? Now it has to sludge through the mud that got built up before it can get to the middle central nervous system, the master program brain, to say, okay, let's implement that change because that's healthy for us. That's good for us. That's something we want to engage in. Really quick, because we got like 20 minutes left, Cousin Mo. I appreciate all the love we're getting in the chat. Osha, I seen your comment. I will check out your roast video. But
a hairline.
Trying to talk about hairlines. Listen, I'm missing some. It's okay.
Roasting my boy O'Shea, man.
But
this dude had, my bad. Go ahead.
I want to give you guys in the chat an opportunity, because we'll be cutting hardish tonight. I want you to take some time. If you have a question or if you have a comment outside of hairlines that you want to share, go ahead and share that. But let's keep this conversation going because I'm liking where this goes. And so my next question that I want to ask you, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but outside of the felt, found, and scales from 1 to 10, I think people are at least, they may not accept or implement feedback or accountability from us, but they will at least listen and maybe replay at a later time. I'm very much like that myself, replay at a later time if there is trust there. So how do you go about establishing trust in the relationships that you have, whether professional, romantic, acquaintances, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I suck at trust. I suck at trust. Because I'm so open, I'm an open book. I guess maybe it's my sense of humor that kind of breaks down the walls a little bit. I don't take myself serious at all. Sometimes I do. But in the most part, you'll always find me a little bit easygoing. I am competitive though, so they can see it in my work ethic. I've done a lot. I've done a lot. I got a lot of accomplishments under my belt, what gives me a sense of confidence that's almost trustworthy, I guess you can say. When you walk with a sense of confidence, people have a natural tendency to kind of trust it a little bit, unless they don't like confident people. And in that regard, then they'll just look at, oh, he's arrogant, and whatever that might be. In my personal relationships, trust hasn't been one of the biggest issues. It's been productivity. Let me see you doing something. What are you actually doing? And because they can see you doing works, then that establishes a sense of reliability. I don't know if I can trust you, but you're definitely dependable. You're definitely reliable. You're definitely honest. You're definitely somebody who has integrity. Because you don't always have a filter, I know that you're going to keep it real and you're going to be honest. So your honest opinion is something that I value. So they find things that they can value that make up the pillars of what a trust relationship is, without actually having to say, I trust this person. But yeah, for me, trust, I'm not really big on trust.
Okay. I actually like though what you bring in, the productivity. It's like, what is your work ethic? What are you doing that validates that I should listen to you? I've been in relationships like that in the professional realm where my boss felt like, oh, well, I don't know if you're putting everything in that you have to put in to our team. And then they hire somebody new on the team and they start seeing, wait a minute, Billy's here every day. He shows up to work. He does his work. He meets his deadlines and all these different things. And then you compare that to somebody who doesn't show up to work, who doesn't even call in sick, who doesn't like just comes every 3 days or so, like they just need a stipend. And you would think they're getting paid cash under the table for every day that they work. They see that. And when they compare that, they're like, wait a minute. So when I bring something to their attention, they're at least more apt to listen. Now, does that mean they're receptive of it? Not necessarily. I had one boss who I literally was reading a book, and what I was reading in the book resonated with me enough to say, you know what, I want to share this with my boss on management. And it wasn't about managing me. It was just managing people all together. And hey, I feel like this is something that I could be working on to make me a better leader. This might be something you want to work on, especially if you're going to be leading me, because I'm going to probably try to hold you accountable to it at some point. And I gave that to my boss, and his comeback to me was, well, I don't need anybody to tell me how to be a manager. You got things you need to work on as well. And And it started this dialogue. And I was like, I wasn't even trying to attack you. But when I step back from that, it's like, well, there's obviously a trust disconnect there to where he doesn't believe I have his best interest in mind. Like maybe he believes it's a diabolical plan to set up a case against him to say that I was wrongfully terminated or wrongfully in a hostile work environment or whatever it may be. It may be that in his mind. And so even realizing that you're combating other people's stories, trying to build that trust, even when you have the best intentions, sometimes can fall flat on its face. So it is something that's difficult, but I like that you bring being productive and your productivity, allowing people to see what it is that you're doing and allow that to speak for you and be your first foot forward before you go and open your mouth and say, you really should work on this. It's like, why don't you work on that telephone pole in your eye and stop worrying about the splinter I got in my eye?
That's it.
So I definitely agree with that. So for my next question, or I kind of want to dive actually a little bit more into that, because I think another aspect that impacts trust is that sometimes, again, it is unsolicited when, you know, when you surprise somebody with accountability and you're not an accountable individual yourself, that's always going to be a surprise. Like, are you of all people talking to me? So how do you overcome that unsolicited mentorship relationship where, you know, nobody's asking for your advice, nobody's asking for your opinion, nobody wants to hear that you felt found, nobody's asked you about your experience. They're standoffish. How do you handle those types of situations?
Yeah, that's also so. There's a, what do they call it? Mental toughness or thick skin and all of those things like that.
Hard-headed.
I didn't know what my brother's keeper was telling me. I didn't know what he was telling me, but I am a sensitive dude. I am like, because I live with my heart on my sleeve sometimes, like I have no poker face. Like my emotions be right there and they could be almost finicky too. Like I have my moments, like I be having my moments. And so my feedback was, so here's how I kind of interpret the question. How do you receive some of that feedback sometimes too? When somebody, they want you to be accountable. There's sometimes where somebody, your brother's keeper has told you something and now they got to tell you something in another way, but it's still them telling you the same thing over again. And if it gets to that third time, they start feeling like, well, you know, that's where that trust starts to wane a little bit because they've been put in a situation where they've tried to warn you, they've tried to do it the nice way, roundabout, or whatever it might be. I didn't ask them for it, and now they're telling me something. Here's how I felt. I didn't ask them for the feedback, and now that they're giving me this free feedback, it didn't come with, like, back in the day, it was just like, if I was ready to get into a fight, somebody'd be like, take a walk. I mean, that's easy to implement right there. That's easy to implement. That comes with a direct order. Military, walk it out, breathe. You better count down from 10. It had some very specific set of instructions that went with it on how to implement whatever it was. You didn't need to know what the end game was. You needed to do what they were telling you to do right then. And so what happens is when some people come in and give advice, it's almost like your life needs to change. Here's what you need to do with your life. Like I had one who was like, Moses, it's about time for you to get your teeth fixed. You're in corporate America and all of that. And I'm like, okay, let me think about that. First, I need to fix my credit. I'm going to get more raises. And then once I get my credit and those raises, that's going to allow me to pay this high, I think it's like $800 to $900 deductible that's going to come on with the insurance. And then they're only going to cover it at 60%, which means I need another 40%. And what are we talking about? I'm talking about getting all 4 done, which means I need $12,000. 40% of that is probably going to be a little bit steep. So around $3,600 plus that $800. So $4,400 cash saved. I got about $3,100 saved right now, but it's been about a year. So when they just come with that type of advice, they got to understand that there are different nuances to making life decisions. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be slow to implement. So for me, I just went everywhere and I didn't forgot what the question was again. Let me see. Implementing trust. Let me see.
No, you just unsolicited mentoree relationship. And so you reflected it honestly upon yourself, which is fine. I know what you mean though. Like you said, it's easy to say do X, but you got to realize there's a bunch of letters before you get to X in the alphabet. So that is an aspect that I think that you're bringing up, and I didn't intend to ask about it, but you're bringing it up as an aspect of patience being required to be a brother's keeper, not a keepee. To be a brother's keeper is to understand that maybe you're telling them something and they're already in the process, and to have that patience with them. Not, well, why don't you have the 4,400 yet that you need? Is, hey, okay, cool. So you're aware and you're making these moves. What's the game plan? Now, as your brother's keeper, I can talk to you about what your plan is if you're open enough to share that with me, and we can make sure that we're holding each other accountable in that state where it's like, okay, so, you know, Moses, you went out, you're talking about going big to Cabo, but I thought we had a goal for the dental plan. Like, what's up? What's more important, the time in Cabo or the dental plan? I'm good with you either way. I'm good with you either way. But being that voice that says, is this really the priority as a brother's keeper? Once you have that patience and you're able to hear what the true situation is, I ain't talking about excuses, but when you're able to hear what the situation is, then you're able to say, okay, I have this information. This is the situation. Here's now how I can reprogram how to hold this person accountable and try to have the best in mind for them. So you do bring up another aspect that I wasn't even thinking about, the patience required to be a brother's keeper.
Absolutely.
So
Let
with
me
that,
one out real quick. I'll be short this time. The unsolicited mentors. Sometimes we got to take it like a grain of salt, but understand salt adds flavor.
mm,
You might take it as a grain of salt, but understand salt adds flavor. Even those little unsolicited mentors, sometimes they're good for the ego. Sometimes they're good because these can be sounding boards in other venues, especially if you're in a corporate environment or in a working environment. In the neighborhood, it's called rep or your reputation. You have those people who just wanted to tell you something. They see you doing something, the Crandall Rankins or the Harry Block or the Elder Lee, the pastors that are there, the moms, the neighbors who just see you, mowing the lawn and different things. And they start to speak good on your name. And that speaking good about each other can manifest inside the community as well. We want to be a brother's keeper inside of our local communities. And yet we still know that there are some challenges that those communities face, i.e. dental, health plans, elders getting older, but still not having life insurance, home insurance. They can't afford to fix things like their roofs, their electricity, their plumbing. We want to come in and say, why does the yard look this way? Not knowing that inside the house, the toilet ain't flushed right in years. Go in there and take a hold that knob down, and like my grandma's house, and never fix that septic tank at years because we never really understood and never took the time to ask those open-ended questions about their situation. What would it really require for them to make those changes? And then how can we help in implementing it?
right. Don't get to the people so hard. Sit back, rock a little bit, relax a little bit. You're killing them, bro. So we got about 8 minutes left. I want to ask you one more question and then give us a chance to start closing because we got to close pretty rapidly. Have you ever experienced a person attempting to set adverse accountability for you? So what I mean by that is, us growing up in the neighborhood we grew up in, speaking well, somebody, oh, you a sucker, you a chump, you a square, and trying to set that accountability for you to slip more into slang or be a little more relaxed or sag your pants a little bit more. Have you ever experienced that? And how have you either overcame that or been able to spit out the things of the brother's keeper, the negative brother's keeper, we're going to call it, who is trying to send you in the wrong direction? How have you been able to establish boundaries and barriers to keep that out of your life?
Absolutely. So the answer to the question is yes. Many a times from the articulation, this guy sounds white. I heard that last night. Other people going in saying, I kind of handled that one on the fly. Just like, now you're not saying that I actually sound white in tone. You're saying it in the respect towards I can articulate myself, and it's more about a reflection of intellect that I'm projecting. And so I just I handled it like that. At the end of the day, he was like, cool. And that was it. Other people like, oh, he sounds like Michael Eric Dyson, I think the guy is, because I'm definitely a socialist. I'm definitely liberal as hell. I want more. I'm greedy. I want more rights. The income inequality. I want wealth inequality. How do we fix it? Bring it all in. And so they called it word salad. And in some of these in circles, speaking well and then speaking fast because there's so much to say and you only got so much time to get somebody's attention. They'd be like, man, that's word salad. So they only want you to say, look, we need equal rights. And that's as far as they want you to go. They don't want you to break it down. And so my barriers are, I still got some gang members still in Del Paso Heights that be like, Moses is a pillar of the community. They still remember seeing my face on the plaque. They still remember before the Urban League was there, it was the gas station, and they still remember these things. And Moses going door to door, knocking on it. They still remember the good works of the youth planners. They still remember that there was that segment that went to the left a little bit, and we were always at the firehouse while others were still, and it was like hands off. They weren't trying to bully us or any of that stuff. It was kind of like a respect thing. And then to see some of the changes that happened in the neighborhood, some of the big picnics and events that are able to still to this day that are still sustained, that's still something that they admire. I hear that in the back of my head. So when I deal with it every day now, or when I do, not every day, but when I deal with it, those who say, Moses, you need to change, or this is, like adverse, that they're not as receptive to my personality, not as receptive to my pro-blackness, if you want to call it that. They're not as receptive to my opinions. I still have to have that one filter that says, but I know people who are proud of me. And if I can't do it for myself, I know I have people that I need to keep doing it for. So that's my spiel. That was the big one right there. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. I'm not in Detroit. I'm everywhere. And I respect brothers. It's a human thing. I respect my brothers. I got cousins. I got neighbors, everybody that's been my brother. I got people who I haven't met yet who are my brothers. I have people who I will meet who are my brothers. I have people who don't look like me, haven't experienced what I've experienced. I got an uncle, he's white, redneck, golfer, 50 something years old. My first comment to him was, and this is probably something that could have had me in the HR office. I was like, have you ever had an African-American nephew? And he was like, no, I can't say I have. And I was like, Uncle Craig, bring it in. And I see him at work now. He's like, what's up, nephew? I'm like, what's going on, uncle? And he says it with the same cadence too. So being able to have that type of love for people, it's infectious, man. And that's just me, man. If we can get around to love and being able to love each other, man, we'll go so far in this world. We'll go so far in our neighborhood, so far in our jobs. It's got to start right there, though. Am I my brother's keeper, Cousin Ro?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, well, we got 4 minutes. I'm gonna jump on the first tools for the first row really quick and hit them bam, bam, bam. Really, it's in my creation of this content, I was thinking of how do I become my brother's keeper, or how do I engage with being a brother's keeper or be engaged as a brother's keepee in my own personal life. One of the things that I want to leave off with before I even jump into my tools is something that Moses, you just said, was it's really about love. Do I love my fellow brother? Do I love my fellow sister? And if the answer is yes, then there's no way for you to not be a brother's keeper or a sister's keeper in that particular stance. So for the first tool that I came up with when coming up with this content to kind of help me develop what my questions were going to be, the first thing that I came up with is that observation should not come from a place of fear or a place of judgment. And it's hard to say the judgment aspect, but a lot of times when we're doing the brother's keeper, we treat it the same way that many of us were parented. Don't touch that stove, it's hot. And so they try to create this fear of heat because there's a lack of logic or a lack of intelligence there to say, okay, well, it's hot and that's going to hurt me. And so I need to stay away. So kids learn at a very young age, hot, hot, hot. Well, as you get older, the brother's keeper stance requires more information so that an intellectual decision can be made or a logical basis can be determined. So the first thing that I came up with was observation. It shouldn't come from a place of fear. Oh, the sky is falling, don't do that. Or a place of judgment like, oh, how could you do that? I would think you'd be better than that by now. But it needs to come from a place, the second tool, the brother's keeper's methodology, it should come from a place of love, or a place of care. And so what do I mean by coming from a place of care? Typically, when you're trying to hold somebody accountable to something, if you're coming from a place of love, then you trying to hold them accountable is caring about their well-being. It's not about what you're going to get out of them being accountable to you. It's about what they're going to get out of making the best decisions that you can see for them. Now, obviously, their choice is theirs to make, but if you can contribute something to that or put a resource in their hand that's going to help them get better, then why wouldn't you do that if you say you love and you care about that person? So that's the tool number 2, is come from a place of care. The third tool that I came up with was you've got to be open to both sides of the coin. Nobody wants to just be told what to do. Going back to what we were talking about earlier. Oh, you should do this and you should do this and you should do this and you should do this. And then, those people give you, hey, I appreciate you holding me accountable to that. And then they see an opportunity to hold you accountable to something that you said you want. Hey, I don't need nobody telling me what to do. I don't need nobody giving me information and feedback. No, if you're going to be a keeper, then you got to be open to being a keepee. Other than that, at some point, people are going to start looking at you as a hypocrite. And a hypocrite, the hypocrisy and of a hypocrite creates a power vacuum that doesn't allow you to be powerful. It makes you impotent, meaning you have no power or you lack power. So that's the third tool, is that you have to be willing to be both sides of that coin, be a keeper or a keepee. And then the last tool that I came up with, the fourth and final tool, was really what being a brother's keeper is about, and having people being receptive to that methodology and accepting to your feedback and open to your feedback. It's all about creating a place of safety and trust. When you can develop trust with the person and they know that you have their best intentions in mind, or they're not worried about the moment you say, hey, no, don't look over here and go towards this opportunity, but look over there. And they know in their heart that when they look to the right, that you're not going to stab them in the back of the neck with a knife or try to destroy them or bring them down or cause them harm. Then they can be begin. They may not immediately be, because as Cousin Mo said, it can be hard and slow, but they can begin to be receptive to your feedback. They can begin to be receptive to you holding them accountable. And instead of receiving it as judgment, they can receive that as love. So those are the 4 tools that I came up with. 1, observation should not be wrapped in fear and judgment. 2, come from a place of care and or love. 3, being open to being both sides of the coin. You can be the keeper or the keepee, but you can't be only one or only the other. And then 4, create a place of safety and trust. It's going to end real rapid though tonight, because I got another Intersation jumping off in 5 minutes. Matter of fact, let me put this in the chat for those who are still watching live. You can head over there right after this Intersation. Boom, there is the link. But we are going to be doing the next Intersation in literally 4 minutes from now. That is going to be an Intersations on opposite sex friends. That's with my friend Jennifer Chambers. Moses Jenkins, Cousin Mo. If you could do one thing, close out really quick, 60 seconds or less. Tell the people how you feel about them coming tonight, and then we'll just go ahead and sign off.
Man, I appreciate everybody coming in. I appreciate the people who are going to be watching it in the back. Make sure that you like the video. Keep my boy's video moving up the charts, man. We need subscribers to come on, make themselves known, get involved, get engaged in the chat, shoot the questions out there. We're seeing family, we're seeing loved ones come in the chat already. So I appreciate and love you all for joining and tuning in. There's a number of things coming in 2019 that you got to hold your seat for. Right now, I'm looking forward to the next one. So I'm going to allow that to let it ride, man. It's going to be hard. It's going to be slow, but it's going to happen, baby. Shoot me that feedback. I love it. Let's do it.
All right, y'all. Well, as always, if you like the video, share it. If you share it, like it. Please click the subscribe button, hit the bell so you know when we're live on the first row. Until the next 3 minutes or so, I'll see you next time on the first row. One love, peace, and God bless.